what are the top 3 basics you think, just absolute must have that anyone who has any interest in health, longevity has to follow? Those are absolute non-negotiables.
Yeah. So it's sleep, exercise, and diet.
How much sleep?
So the parameters you want to hit for sleep, you want to be asleep within a few minutes of your head hitting the pillow. So I'm asleep in roughly 60 seconds to 2 minutes. Like I'm out instantaneously.
How do you find that out?
You have a sleep onset indicator. Yeah. So wearables.
Right. So all variables will give you the data about it.
Exactly. So you see that sleep onset. And then you want roughly 2 hours of REM, roughly 2 hours of deep, thereabouts. Like people vary a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to be up less than 1 or 0 time per night. So you don't want to be up for 2 or 3 times a night. And then you want to be up for less than 30 minutes per night. And then if you hit those stats, then that's really like optimal sleep every night. And you want to be doing it every night. Typically, to get those kinds of stats, you need to be in bed around 7 to 8 hours. It's very hard to cheat it and get 4 hours because you need your deep cycle, you need your REM cycle. So those are the 5 things. So yeah, I talk about 5 habits for sleep.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, cool. So this is, I achieved the best sleep score in human history. 8 months of perfect sleep with a wearable.
Oura or some other wearable?
I use Whoop.
Whoop, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
But for those listening, any wearable's fine.
Yeah.
Like Aura's great, Apple's great, Garmin, they're all fine.
And what is the sleep score that, that you are happy with, when let's say Whoop or Oura, these guys have all scale of 100, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you consider as a really good night of sleep?
Yeah, Whoop is 100.
100.
Aura is harder. So Aura, if you're in the like high 80s, low 90s, you're doing a great job. Apple, I'm not quite sure how they score it. I don't think they give you a sleep score. I think they just give you a sleep time. But yeah, the 5 habits are, so 1 is to reframe identity, that you are a professional sleeper. A lot of people are very lackadaisical about sleep. They think they can just like do it when they want. You can't. You have to actually respect it, and you have to like you're a professional sleeper. 2 is last meal of the day is 2 hours before bed, if not or earlier. So I have my last meal of the day 9 hours before I go to bed. So before I came here with you today, I had my last meal of the day. So I won't eat the remainder of the day, and I do that because my resting heart rate will be at 44 tonight, and that's when it's 44 right before bed. I'll have a perfect night's sleep. But really, your resting heart rate before bed is the strongest indicator of whether or not you're going to sleep well. And so eat earlier and lighter. So carbohydrates like pizza and pastas and breads, they would elevate heart rate. Alcohol elevates heart rate. So anything that elevates heart rate, arousal, like if you're uptight. So the last meal of the day, 2 hours before bed, if not more. 3 is light. So try to no screens, turn screens off 1 hour before bed, and do reds and amber lights. So I have a lamp in our house with a red light. 4 is consistency. So my bedtime's at 8:30 p.m. So I try to be in bed plus or minus 30 minutes every night. When I was doing my 8 months of perfect sleep, I was in bed within 1 minute every night. And I have to say, I slept like a baby. The body is so powerful in doing its thing if you give it what it needs, consistency and, final meal of the day and et cetera. And then the last thing is a wind down routine. So one of the biggest problems people have is they put their head on the pillow and then they realize they're just rolling through thoughts and they can't stop the rumination. And then they stay in bed for an hour and then they feel frustrated and they feel concerned. And so the brain demands reconciliation. So the final hour before bedtime is your hour to basically reconcile with the day. Like, things you're worried about, things you're excited about, things you're mad about. And so I typically break myself out into different versions of Bryan where I say, hey, ambitious Bryan, hi, anxious Bryan. And I'll speak to my various selves about these various things. So when my head is a pillow, I'm reconciled. And also when you wake up in the middle of the night, if you're not reconciled, your brain will be like, hey, we need to talk through these things. And you'll then ruminate and then you come back to sleep. So that wind down routine, so it's an hour of reconciliation with the brain, self-talk, also reading a book, going for a walk, breath work, meditation. So you don't want to be watching something on the screens. You don't want to have a fight with a partner. You want to really just get your body in a position for sleep.
And this phrase you use, professional sleeper, I think that's almost, talking about creating an identity for yourself instead of think of sleep as a necessary evil or something that's keeping you away from more important things. It is probably the most important thing, as far as health is concerned.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's probably fair to say sleep is the most powerful drug available to any human. There's nothing more powerful.
Mm-hmm. And you said so three things. So next, diet. So what are some of the broad rules about diet? I guess from what you already mentioned, looks like your eating window is fairly small. So is that
Yeah.
time restricted eating is an important component, and what are the parameters that people should play with?
So actually, I would go to exercise next, only because diet is so emotionally fueled. People have we oftentimes take our emotions to food. And so it's very complicated. It's very hard to eat healthy. It's very hard to stop bad foods. And so I insert exercise in there, one, because it has more evidence for increasing lifespan. It's number two. And so exercise, we all know this, when we exercise, we feel good about ourselves. We feel great. We feel more powerful. We feel more like we have more willpower. And so a good night's sleep, you wake up and you say, you know what? I feel great. And now I'm going to exercise. So the exercise, you're like, you know what? I feel really great. Now I want to eat well. And so it's really trying to hit that beat every day. Great sleep, great exercise. And that then bridges you into now I'm going to eat well. And so exercise, I exercise for an hour a day. The general rules are you want to have 4.5 hours a week of zone 2. That just means you could exercise and be talking to someone normally. And then 90 minutes a week where you can't talk to somebody. So it's zone 5. So you're working out so hard, you can't, you're breathing very hard. So that's generally true for activity. And then you want to have inside of that also some weight training, at least 3 times a week. Muscle is very important, bone mineral density is very important. And then you can always go down the various paths of the very specific things, like what kind of exercises you want to do, what kind of muscle groups. But generally speaking, the beginner's guide, just be active. Right? And then that's okay, just be active and also don't get injured because injury is very hard. So exercise, it's the concept is very similar. Just be active, and then of course there's this very advanced mode you can get into of the specifics of what your training protocol is, what you're trying to optimize for. But
is it also fair to say that the protocol you outlined, I think as far as aging longevity is concerned, I think that'll do the job. And if you get into advanced protocols, it's mostly for performance. That I'm trying to reduce my time for a particular run or marathon, certain time and so on. Not necessarily. A lot of people confuse that. The harder I train, somehow I'm doing better for my body, but that's not necessarily true. Or what's your perspective?
Agreed. Yeah. So that was something I learned myself going through this process. Is typically people think if one of this thing is good for me, 2 must be better, and 4 must be great. And everything in health and wellness is a U-shaped curve where you hit an optimal point in the curve, and then adding any more is actually harmful. And so you can drink too much water, you can have too much oxygen, you can have too much vitamin C. And so everything you want just the right amount.
And just going back to your just schedule. So 8:30 you are out sleeping. So I'm guessing you get up around 4:30.
Yeah.
And how much time between that waking up to go to the gym?
Yeah. So 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So I wake up, I have this routine I do every day. I'll wake up, I immediately get light in my eyes. So I get up before the sun. So I have a 10,000 lux device in my house. I'll sit in front of that. I'll take my temperature of my inner ear. I'll put some growth factors on my scalp for hair growth. I'll put a red light laser cap, and I'll sit in front of that light for a few minutes. Then I'll go downstairs. I'll eat a little something before I work out. So it's a blueprint protein powder, creatine, what I call longevity mix, which has some energy promoting ingredients. I'll then work out for an hour, and then I'll come in and do a few therapies. Right now I'm doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I'm doing a 60-day protocol, 60-session protocol, and I will do red light therapy for 6 minutes. I'm currently doing a peptide, cerebrolysin, and I'll take 40 pills thereabouts, and that's roughly my morning.
This is before your workout? No, after.
After, yeah.
After work.
Yeah.
These pills with food, without food?
With food.
With food.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, and that's effectively your first meal of the day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I have roughly, I forget the count now. It's between 30 or 40 in the morning, and I think 10 or 15 thereabouts in the afternoon. So 50 pills or so in the day.
And overall 2 meals in a day. So your second meal is around noon or something. Yeah.
Yes, I do. First meal at 5-ish, 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
Second, after I work out, at 7, 7:30. And then a final meal of the day, at 9:30, 10, 11, somewhere in there.
Got it.
So I'm finished by around 11.
Got it. So you have this, looks like 5-6 hour eating window.
Yeah, 6, yeah.
How should people think about, 6 versus 10 versus 12? Is there very strong science or, to experiment with this? What's, there is absolutely no denying that some form of fasting is great for you.
Yeah.
But how do you arrive? How can somebody arrive at the right optimal window?
Yeah. I don't think the science is that particular. I think there's good evidence that that time restricted eating does have some benefits. But I think if somebody wants to do 6 or 8 or 10 or 12, I think it's fine. I think it's probably more important that the total caloric intake, and probably more important the routine someone does. So I choose this particular routine because my life is built around sleep. And I did a few hundred experiments evaluating what time I have my last meal of the day and what kind of food it is. Yeah. And then what my resting heart rate is and what my sleep is. And it just came back again and again. My resting heart rate was the best predictor of all things on how I was going to sleep. And I could see if I went to a birthday party and I had a sandwich that had some bread, inevitably my heart rate would be 55, 60, something in that elevated area, and it would take away 30, 40% of my sleep. So it was just such an algorithmic thing. And so, yeah, it makes me wonder how I actually survived in life before I started paying attention to these things. But now that I know how these variables interact, it's really freeing to know I can systematically get high quality sleep by doing certain things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised with this, 8:30 p.m. sleep time. But I want to share, I start sleeping before 8:30, so I try to hit the bed between 8 and 8:30.
Yeah.
But that means the evening social life is just gone.
Yeah.
Just no longer able to really go to any dinner or evening engagement. I don't know, what do you do? Do you decline to all of those, or you have a way of navigating, at least going for a couple of hours, sip water and come back and still the pillow by 8:30?
Yeah, I have been trying very hard to be much more socially active. And so the first 4 years of this project were trying to prove that you could achieve don't die, right? The new era is here. And then a lot of people were like, well, that's cool, but you're not living life. And so I was like, okay, so yeah, I've been doing things where I went to a concert. A friend of mine was playing a DJ. And so I went to bed at 7 p.m. I woke up at 9, so I got 2 hours of deep sleep. And then I went to the concert, danced, and I came home around 2 in the morning. Then I got the remainder of my REM. And I still got 100% sleep score. And the next day I felt great. So it was an experiment. Can you do this kind of thing? So, and I was exposed to blue light at the dance party. So I wondered, was this going to affect me? So I still am very much in the game of experimentation. And we just want to look at the data. So that day after, I had, again, 2 hours of deep, 2 hours of REM. I didn't get up at all outside of that window. So it worked to some degrees. Now, what I do every day? Probably not. But I really have tried to be much more social. But I agree with you, it's very hard. Also, I don't know about you, but most humans in the evenings, 6, 7, and they're on, a different version of ourselves come out. And that version is much more prone to behave badly in every single aspect of life. And so in many ways, I like going to bed before that version of me comes out. And I also like the version of me that is in the morning. I wake up feeling great about life, and I have 4 hours where nobody is interrupting me, and it's just open field for thought and work. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that routine.
At Sparks, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to Sparks on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.